Hosla Ka Ghosla, translated in English as Perched, a short story by Pallav Baruah. Within the confines of a towering apartment building resided a young pigeon by the name of Hosla. Unlike his fellow pigeons who were content constructing simple nests atop buildings, Hosla dreamed of constructing a nest that would rival human architecture. Every day, Hosla would join his companions at the local chabutra, a gathering place for pigeons where they discussed family affairs and community matters. It was here that Hosla's aspirations began to take flight. He thought about how humans had built robust nests that lasted for generations. But Hosla's past was a sorrowful one. Tragedy struck when a violent storm ravaged his nest, leaving baby Hosla orphaned and dependent on his fellow pigeons for his upbringing. Despite the love and care he received, Hosla was marked by his orphan status, deemed unsuitable for courtship within the pigeon community. Hosla remembered his father's words, "You got all the limbs and all the features like all the other pigeons. Sky's the limit, son. Sky is the limit." Determined to prove this to be true, Hosla embarked on an endeavour to bring his architectural vision to fruition. He found a perch atop an AC compressor. There, he envisioned a nest that would harness the ventilation provided by the whirring fan below, keeping it warm and dry. Hosla toiled tirelessly, gathering materials and meticulously crafting his masterpiece. As the structure took shape, whispers spread, some skeptical, others perplexed. Finally, the day arrived. With his nest complete and adorned with every comfort imaginable to a pigeon, Hosla extended invitations, welcoming neighbours, friends, and even his crush, Masakali, to a lavish housewarming party. Guests flocked, showering Hosla with admiration and praise. Hosla's heart swelled with pride. Yet amidst the festivities, disaster struck. Without warning, the hum of the AC compressor fell silent, and a rope harness descended from above, bearing an unexpected intruder, a human. Panic rippled through the crowd as the human, armed with a stick, launched a ruthless assault on Hosla's nest, sending debris flying and instigating chaos among the pigeons. In time, the compressor was dismantled, leaving Hosla and the pigeons shaken and distraught. Labelled as reckless and irresponsible, he was cast out from the community, ostracized for his daring pursuit of greatness. Rejected by his own kind, he sat through rain, sun, thunder, and wind outside the periphery of the pigeon community. Gradually, he began to lose weight, deprived of the communal meals at the chabutra. Throughout this time, a squirrel had been observing him. The squirrel approached Hosla and introduced himself as Pintu, the food scout of his community. He offered Hosla food and shelter in exchange for becoming his air courier. Desperate, Hosla agreed. The squirrel, with the help of a pigeon, doubled his food in a matter of hours. Overjoyed, Pintu gave Hosla his share. Hosla felt a sense of purpose as he enjoyed his hard-earned meal. With Hosla's assistance, Pintu became a prominent trader within prey communities such as squirrels and mice, utilizing Hosla's air cargo services to transport goods from distant and difficult places. As a result, the squirrels began to thrive on better quality food shipped by Hosla. But Hosla had to dodge hawks, jump cats, and outrun crows often during these runs. Pintu and Hosla's air adventures became the talk of the squirrel community, with their exploits generating daily buzz. Through their endeavours, Hosla managed to accumulate enough resources to invite his crush, Masakali, on a date atop a mobile tower, illuminated by the red glow of the aircraft warning light. Against the magnificent backdrop of the pearly moon, they shared their first kiss. The next day dawned with Hosla still lost in his crush, only to be abruptly awakened by loud screeches echoing from hawks above. Frantically, he called out for his friend Pintu, but Pintu was nowhere to be found. The hawks descended upon the gathering of squirrels, wreaking havoc as they snatched several of them in their talons before soaring away, leaving the scene engulfed in utter horror and despair. A few squirrels remained, sobbing and devastated by the sudden loss of their loved ones. Hosla couldn't bring himself to accept that his friend Pintu was gone. Masakali saw the torment in his eyes. She knew that if he didn't act, regret would consume him. So she did what she had to. She pushed him to go and bring the squirrels back. Determined to rescue the squirrels and find Pintu, Hosla resolved to embark on a dangerous journey into the heart of the hawk's lair. He turned to the eldest squirrels, who informed him that only the upturned ones, the bats, possessed the knowledge of the hawk's whereabouts. These bats, they explained, convened only at night in shadowy places. Hosla set out to meet the bats. Venturing into the abandoned basement of an old building as the sun dipped below the horizon, he stumbled upon an unexpected scene, an occult celebration. Clad in black dresses, the bats danced and sang in high notes, competing against each other for the perfect pitch. In their songs, they praised the darkness god for being their guidance. A young, snobbish bat approached Hosla. The bat introduced himself, but Hosla strained to catch his name, as its syllables were beyond the range of human or pigeon hearing. Nevertheless, the bat lowered his voice to a common tongue. Chum Gadar, he said his name was. He agreed to assist Hosla upon learning of his plight to find Pintu and rescue the squirrels. However, Chum Gadar proposed a condition. In exchange for his aid, Hosla must assist in sealing the holes in the basement through which sunlight seeped during the day. No bird could help the bats because they couldn't be supplied with fresh stems, hay, or twigs. Leveraging his architectural prowess, Hosla constructed a structure to block out the daylight. It was made by intertwining several substitutes for what actually should have been twigs, polythene, rags, wire, whatever he could gather. As dawn cast its first blush upon the horizon, Chum Gadar approached the construction, squinting his eyes and yawning. It was time for their sleep, but he awaited the arrival of the sun to ascertain if Hosla's solution had indeed proved effective. To his astonishment, the basement remained cloaked in darkness. "It is a miracle," Chum Gadar gasped, but Hosla appeared lost. Pigeons could not see in pitch darkness. Bats could. When the bats understood this, they all laughed and hugged Hosla. Chum Gadar and his brethren pledged their aid to Hosla in his quest. At night, under darkness, the bats accompanied Hosla to the lair of the hawks atop a tall water tank, where they witnessed the squirrels being held captive. Chum Gadar outlined the plan. They would silently swoop in and pick up the squirrels one by one, with Hosla observing from above. As the plan unfolded, the bats covertly rescued all the squirrels except Pintu. Pintu found himself held by what appeared to be a tiny white hawk with a big head. Pintu tried to slip away from the clutches of the baby hawk, but his movements woke it up. Alarmed, Pintu began to back away towards the edge of the tank, tiptoeing carefully between the sleeping hawks. Seeing this, the baby hawk dashed towards Pintu. Pintu leapt out of the path, but the baby hawk, unable to stop its momentum, continued its run towards the edge. It was now perilously close to a fatal fall. Hosla noticed the baby hawk nearing the edge. He recalled the storm that had swept away his nest and claimed the lives of his siblings. Disregarding Chum Gadar's instructions, Hosla swooped down to save the baby hawk, grabbing onto its wings. The rescue created a loud flutter, alerting the other hawks. Hosla managed to save the baby, but as he turned around, he was met with the furious, frowning faces of the hawks, screeching in rage. Without hesitation, Hosla flew away at top speed, the hawks hot on his tail. While the hawks chased Hosla, Chum Gadar seized the opportunity to rescue Pintu. Amidst the chaos, Chum Gadar safely landed Pintu on a terrace. Upon seeing a bat up close for the first time, Pintu realized the striking similarities between himself and Chum Gadar. This realization infuriated Chum Gadar, who believed that bats, who fly and consume fresh food, could not be compared to a group of hoarders. Pintu countered by mentioning his knowledge of distant cousins who could also fly, but Chum Gadar argued that there was a fundamental difference between gliding squirrels and flying bats. As they were busy comparing themselves, they suddenly noticed Hosla caught in the talons of a hawk. Urged by Pintu, they decided to put their differences aside and work together to save their friend. Pintu climbed onto Chum Gadar's back, and they flew high above the hawk carrying Hosla. Chum Gadar urged Pintu to take a leap of faith and jump onto the hawk to rescue Hosla. With his eyes closed and a deep breath, Pintu bravely leapt onto the hawk. The sudden weight caused the hawk to screech and lose its balance, forcing it to release Hosla. As Pintu fell from the hawk, Hosla regained his flight and caught Pintu in one fell swoop. But in doing so, he lost awareness of his surroundings and skidded onto the water tank, the hawk's lair. The hawks gathered threateningly, but just as tension rose, the baby hawk let out a squeak and gestured excitedly, miming how Hosla had saved it from falling. From the shadows emerged the oldest hawk, a one-eyed, bald and wise chieftain. She spoke calmly, explaining that as apex predators, no other bird had ever saved a hawk in their long history. Yet, she added, an ancient legend foretold that one day a creature, small but brave, would save the life of a hawk. She declared that Hosla was that creature and that the hawks should honour him as one of their own. The hawks, moved by her words, bowed before Hosla and renamed him Hosla of the Hawks. The chieftain asked Hosla how they could return the favour. Hosla thought and answered that if they could leave him, his friends and his family out of their hunts, it would be more than enough. After some discussion, the hawks agreed. Humbled, Hosla thanked them and prepared to leave, his heart full of pride. Pintu was exhilarated yet terrified by the fall. Hosla lifted him once more, and they rejoined Chumgadar mid-flight. The hawks watched the trio of birds, realizing that a mere pigeon had led a rescue and saved their baby. Back at the apartments amidst the squirrel community, the trio, Hosla, Pintu, and Chumgadar, received a hero's welcome. Hosla reunited with Masakali, who expressed her love for him and her desire to marry him, even against her parents' wishes. Hosla agreed. The celebrations began. Chumgadar, however, stole the show with a highly groovy banger, and the squirrels danced to the rhythm. Such cool music had never been heard before. With a full-time job as a courier for squirrels, mice, and now bats, Hosla saved enough to build a beautiful nest atop the abandoned building under which the bats lived. Together with Masakali, he constructed a home equipped with weatherproof and stormproof contraptions. The hawks often kept vigil over them, exchanging salutes with Hosla from time to time. Hosla and Masakali often spent their evenings with Pintu, while Chumgadar now visited them during the day. To protect his eyes from the brightness, he found himself a pair of sunglasses from a Batman action figure that Hosla had given him. He had also developed a nocturnal habit in bat terms, sleeping very late into the bat schedule. One day, a hawk arrived at their nest with news that a violent storm was approaching. They were warned to brace themselves. Hosla of the Hawks, determined to rescue all the animals, devised an extensive architectural plan to accommodate everyone in the abandoned building, even the hawks. After much debate, they all agreed to the plan. The next day, they began construction. The hawks worked as air cargo during the day, and the bats took over at night. The squirrels and mice formed the ground crew. However, distant thunder signalled that the storm was nearing, and they hurried to perch on the secure structures of the construction. It seemed sturdy enough to withstand the storm. But Hosla noticed Masakali brooding atop the building as the wind began to strengthen. Masakali pleaded with him to shelter the pigeons as well, arguing that no family should be destroyed. As not everyone could possess the determination, Hosla had to pull himself up from the ashes. Hosla nodded, and with Pintu and Chumgadar, set off to rescue the pigeons. The pigeons were chattering around the chabutra, pecking at seeds. They explained that they had eggs and babies who couldn't be moved easily. Hosla reassured them, declaring that he was now one of the hawks, and that the hawks would carry them all to safety. The pigeons were sceptical, but the screeches of approaching hawks signalled their arrival. The pigeons fluttered nervously, but the hawks bowed before Hosla, leaving the pigeons astonished. Hosla declared to the hawks that these were the same pigeons who had raised him when he had no one. Now, they needed him. He struck a deal with the pigeons that he would provide them with a safe place to build their community, protected by hawks during the day and bats at night. There would also be ample trade opportunities with the squirrels and mice. The pigeons agreed. Soon, the pigeons arrived at Hosla's construction. The hawks brought their babies and eggs securely in their talons. They all perched and settled in. Masakali's parents reunited with her, but still ignored Hosla. Meanwhile, the wind grew fiercer, the thunder louder, and rain began to splatter. Against the swirling charcoal-coloured storm clouds, violet flashes of lightning tore through the sky. The wind howled, and rain and hail battered the super nest Hosla and his friends built. Pintu's storage compartment rattled, and he began to pray. Chumgadar and the bats hung upside down from the ceiling, yawning and wrapped tightly in their wings. They looked up at the strange yet heartwarming scene. Hawks sitting closely beside pigeons, while mice and squirrels cuddled together. One mouse even snuggled up to Pintu, mistaking him for its wife. Pintu growled in disgust but was too overwhelmed by the storm to move. The wind howled more, icy rain sprayed over them, and the structure creaked and rattled. In the distance, the sounds of roof sheets clanging, car alarms blaring, and trees uprooting and crashing onto concrete echoed. Yet the nest held firm. After what felt like hours, the storm finally subsided. Miraculously, everyone was safe. The crowd erupted into celebration. Hosla was lifted and cradled by the ecstatic crowd. Masakali approached him, and they all began to dance. Even Masakali's parents couldn't resist joining in. The birds swayed and twirled joyfully as Chum Gadar belted out yet another killer song, his voice filling the night with energy. Hosla, Pintu, and Chum Gadar eventually flew up to the terrace to take in the view of the clear night sky. In the distance, they saw people emerging from their homes, helping one another clear the streets and repair broken structures. The sight filled them with hope. They concluded that a storm does bring everyone back together. After a moment of reflection, Hosla cleared his throat and spread his wings. Pintu groaned in protest, but Chum Gadar was already in the air. Reluctantly, Pintu climbed onto Hosla and the trio soared into the night, the city lights twinkling below them and the stars twinkling above. The end.